Hello everybody, this is Fun Police, and I'm doing a one-and-done video on the new Dukla DLC. We're just going to quickly go through and have quick views of all of the different divisions in the new Dukla DLC. I'm going to give my rankings on them as we're going to put them from worst to best in the DLC, and I'll give my thoughts on what is good in the division, what is bad in the division, and all of that. To start this list off, the 13th Hungarian Infantry is, in my opinion, the weakest of the DLC divisions. It's a infantry-based division with a couple weaknesses that I think hold it back from being like a very effective division. But let's go ahead and talk about the different tabs real quick and go over them in general. The Recon tab is very basic, pretty much just your standard stuff that you find in every Hungarian division. The Infantry tab is actually a pretty solid one. You get some nice free stuff on squads, like these 20mm Solotherm AT rifles on your riflemen. You get like a free LMG on your engineers, and these new mountain troops with an MG42 are probably your best ranged option. However, these guys are weird. For 25, they feel a bit overpriced, to be honest, because that Molotov doesn't do a whole lot, and the MG42 can't fight in close range. So they're only like long range, and for 25 points they're kind of Still, it's your best option at the moment. Tank tab, very basic, but pretty much just has a bunch of armor. It does have a card of Zrini, and Zrini are quite good because of their HE shells and solid enough medium tank combat performance. Support is very basic, pretty much all the stuff you find in other divisions, you know, not really anything of note. AT is a tab that does stand out. Most notably, it has a good mix of pretty much all types of AT you could want. You have light AT guns, medium Pak 40s, heavy-duty Pak 43s, Panzer Shreks, and of special note, you have a lot of Raider AT guns, including Raider Pak 40s. These are really strong and are definitely like a highlight of the division in that you're going to be able to like get sneaky kills on stuff without the enemy being able to respond as effectively. So that is overall a very nice tab, and probably one of the best in the division. AA is very basic, some 40mm and this 80mm gun, pretty much nothing special. The artillery tab is, I think, functional for like long grindy games, but I don't think it's particularly amazing. You do get a lot of off-map potential and these Nebelwerfers, so that is very nice. On top of that, you also get these really high rate of fire 150mm guns. However, they are not as good as the standard Hungarian one. They have, like, it feels like worse dispersion. So, it's a tab that is, I think, functional, because it also does have stuff like this radio mortar that is kind of nice. But overall, it's a division tab that I think works, but it's not, like, going to be a super hard carry. And then in the air tab, you actually get a decent air tab. Fighter bombers, tank busters, some decent fighters, recon planes. You can build a pretty solid air tab. And overall, I just feel that 13th Hungarian, its infantry is not strong enough to carry the division. Compared to like other specialized infantry divisions, I feel like you're going to get kind of bullied out. And you don't have the light armor that good Hungarian divisions have in order to like push back against that. You know, like the armored divisions or First Lovaz have a lot of like Turin tanks and whatnot that could effectively like help to support your infantry. You don't have that here. And sadly, the division reminds me of the 12th Tartelek, where it's not as bad as that because it's got like better AT. I would say the artillery's about on par and it's got better infantry, but it's still just like infantry based. It has to play kind of, in my opinion, a long game if it wants to actually come out on top, because its aggression is not that high. And overall, it's just a division that I think of the DLC divisions is the weakest, and it'll probably end up pretty low in most tier lists. The 208th is the next division in this list. And as the 5th division, there is something that holds it down, and that is going to be the fact that its A phase is really bad. Very limited in options. It is functional, but it has nothing that really gives it an edge. And it means that the division generally has to hold on for dear life until it can eventually reach into Phase B, where it then gets access to a lot more armor, tools, stronger infantry and all of that. Going over the different tabs, Phase A, pretty much you have Fusiliers for Phase A, and then in Phase B you get a lot of armored cars and recon Panzer IVs. Also some potential for better Fusiliers with these guys. In the Infantry tab, you have essentially Grenadier MG42 for your Phase A stuff, including standard Pio and Sturm Pio cards. Then in Phase B, you get access to some unique and pretty powerful Jaegers, including Jaeger MP44 and Jaeger MG42. You also get Grenadier MP44, that was a surprisingly good squad in my opinion. There's also Panzer Grenadiers and regular Jaegers as well. So it's actually, once you get past A, a pretty good tab. In the Tank tab, you get Stugs in A and then Panzer IVs in B onward, which is solid enough. In the support tab, there is a decent amount of support infantry guns. IG-33s are always nice, MGs. No flamers, sadly, which is a bit of a shame. You do get these IG-37s that are slightly better IG-18s, which, hey, we won't complain about. In the anti-tank tab, you get a well-rounded tab, but I'm sad it's actually so small. I wish it was a bit of a larger tab. But you get light AT guns, you get good cost-effective guns like the FK288 and the PaK-40, multiple cards of Martyrs if you need more armor, plenty of Panzerschrecks, and even some heavy PaK-43s if you expect heavy-duty tank busting needs. In the AA tab, it is functional but very limited, with a lot of Flak-Verlings and some Flak-43s. Overall, a very solid combo, if just a bit slot expensive. Artillery is actually pretty solid overall. You get some heavy-duty howitzers, some SK-18s. These K-18s are probably the highlight of the tab, but you also do get access to, like, some Vesp and Hummel if you need some self-propelled options. But a lot of this is locked to B outside of these heavy, short-barreled 155 millimeters. And then in the air tab, bit of an awkward tab. Lots of good tank-busting planes and some good heavy bombers, but your fighters are only BF-109s unless you want to stay till C, where you get the G-14, which would be a lot better. I wish this came earlier, but as it is, we're stuck with the G6, which is fairly weak. Overall, 208th is just a division that Phase A is too severe a downside. Even with everything you can take in A, it's just a tab it's a phase that just doesn't feel like it has anything special in it. And you really have to just kind of hold on until B, where all these unique pioneers and the additional artillery and all that kind of comes around, and you can better make use of it. I've personally gone and done a Maverick build with this, as I feel that having that really, really strong comeback in Phase B is the only way you can play this division. You could also, I think, play balanced if you lean a bit more into infantry and artillery, but overall, it's a division that I think is just too held back. Like, you're going to be struggling too much in A and losing too much ground, and then not having, like, the world-ending Phase B to recover from it reliably enough. The fourth division that I'm going to talk about is the SNP, the Slovak National Party, the uprising that happened and kind of sets off this whole Dukla Pass thing. This division is overall probably the best of the partisan divisions we've seen, compared to the Polish Home Army or NOV or even something like DBSAS. This force is the most well-equipped and has a lot going for it. It's very close to a full-on infantry division, and because it pulls upon the entire uprising, which is essentially an entire army, you have very deep tabs in important places. Starting out, the Recon tab, you get a lot of different infantry, but essentially you have maybe some light armored cars or some basic recon infantry, and that's most of what you get until Phase C, where a variety of good paratroopers come in. Notably, these recon guys are pretty good. There is the infantry tab, which is so large and there's so many options that there's a lot to talk about. But just some highlights, things like your infantry all contain PTRS or GRB AT rifles. There is Panzerschrecks and bazookas on a lot of different infantry. You have a lot of good CQC squads. There is a variety of good long-range infantry. Like, I know these guys felt really good when playing with them. You also just have a good variety of other units as well. There's, like, a lot to try out and mess around with, and you can build this in a lot of different ways. But this felt overall pretty strong. The tank tab also was pretty good. Very limited on mediums, I should note. You only get 3 Stugs and some Martyrs. However, you do get some Panzer IIIs and a crap ton of these Panzer 35s and similar, which are very nice in supporting infantry. You can very easily, like, spam the living hell out of these if you want to. There's also the support tab. Mostly has a bunch of machine guns and some various other support tools like these mortars, you know, support teams like supplies, all that. Overall, it's a functional tab, but nothing maybe too exciting. Anti-tank is very nice for what would otherwise be a partisan force. 2 cards of Pack 40 means you have enough medium AT. You get some light AT options, your other Martyrs, which are your only, like, other tanks outside of the Stugs. It's overall a functional enough tab, if not maybe the deepest. AA is a bit awkward. You pretty much just have some Flak 88s, which did get a price buff that feel very nice. They're a lot more affordable because you can get, like, 1 unbalanced in A, because they're 110. Otherwise, you got 20mm that are kind of eh. So I just went with these, and they're okay. They also give long-range AT, which is nice. Artillery is probably, like, the highlight of SNP, because you can just simply hack it with all the good Slovakian artillery. So you get, like, the Hruby, which is a really good artillery piece. You get also, like, 10 cards of this thing. Not the strongest 150mm gun, but the fact that you get, like, the ability to take, like, 80 of them is ridiculous. And especially if you're going to play in team games, this is, like, the reason that you might want to play SNP. Because, oh my god, you take, like, 4 cards of these and you will have endless howitzers to barrage stuff. Also do have some off maps if you want that for offensive potential, alongside a variety of other cheap arty to spam. So it's a pretty good tab overall. And then the air tab is also quite nice. Probably the biggest awkward thing is the fighters. The big issue you're going to run into is that, do you take any fighters in A or not? I'm not, because pretty much the only ones you get are these G6s. Otherwise, you have to wait till Phase B, where you get either some LA5s or some P51s. You do get a variety of interesting heavy bombers, and these are fairly good. Like, there are good bombers here. But it overall is a bit of an awkward tab, and it's not as strong as maybe I'd like it to be. Notably, no tank busting here. It would have been nice if there would have been, like, a card of tank busters, but instead you get, like, some napalm. It's like a functional tab, but maybe a bit lacking. And overall, SNP is a division that I think is quite functional. There's strong enough infantry, you have a lot of light armor, which is what you want in a meta like what is currently in Steel Division, and you have enough supporting elements to back it up, which is normally the downfall of many partisan forces. However, it is still held back. Like, you're gonna run out of medium tanks, your lack of AT planes means super heavies are pretty impossible to kill. Like, I don't know what this division does against, like, a King Tiger or some IS-2s, so that's kind of an issue. On top of that, phase locking holds back the division a little bit, so that's why I put it kind of in this rank 4. But as we'll talk about in a minute, I actually kind of consider this tied with the next division we're going to talk about. They kind of share the slot 4 or 3. They're kind of, I think, equal in performance. Next up, the 18th SS Panzergrenadier Division Horst Wessel is the last of the Axis divisions, and as it ranks only about 3rd in the overall rankings, it means the Allies are kind of the winners of this overall DLC. However, 18th SS is, I think, a very functional division. As I said, I think it's tied with SNP overall, and it has some of the weaknesses that SNP has, and we'll talk about those in a minute, but let's go ahead and talk about the various tabs. Starting out, The Recon tab is filled with plenty of armored recon cars. You just get a lot of them, including a interesting Panzer Grenadier Recon squad. It's overall just a functional tab with most of what you want out of it. Infantry is probably the highlight of the division. You have a lot of different options with a lot of different things, but some highlights: you get Panzer Grenadiers, you get even better Panzer Grenadiers with triple MG42. You gain access to a very strong couple cards of Sturm Pioneers. Jagdverband offer even more good CQC as commandos. You get also like bazookas on some of your infantry. It's overall a very strong tab. I would definitely say it has above average CQC potential, and it has the standard German Panzer Grenadier long range capabilities. It's overall just a very good and deep tab, and definitely like a highlight of the 18th. Armor-wise, you get a variety of medium tanks. Only 2 cards, though, so just a couple Panzer IVs and Stugs. You do get some light Panzer 35s, which are decent enough at, like, killing half-tracks and maybe armored cars, which you can't complain about. The support tab is actually a highlight. It is a very deep and very important tab to the division. You get a bazillion of these SPW military police armored cars. Panzer IV F1s give you some other light armor. It gets infantry guns, machine guns, an Opel Blitz. You can get a commander if you need to. It's overall a very good tab and gives you a lot of important light armor that helps you to play aggressively. Anti-tank is functional if a bit limited on slots. You get Panzerschrecks, light AT guns, you get some FK-288s, and a variety of PaK-40s, which are enough to carry you through a game, but it's not exactly the deepest option. AA is a real weak point of the division. In Phase A, the only AA you have are these singular 20mm. That is very underwhelming, and it is an issue that we'll talk about in a second a little bit more. In Phase B, it becomes a lot better. You get some Flak 43s and some half-track quad Flakverlings as well. Artillery has a fairly solid option, and if you wanted to go deeper on it, you do get some good howitzers. You get the various Czech guns, you get some Soviet ML-10s alongside this new howitzer that, as I said, was not great, but you do get a lot of them. It's overall a tab that is very functional, but no off-map and no rocket artillery are kind of pains. It lacks sort of that big suppressive punch that you may want out of an artillery tab for offensive attacks. And then the air tab is probably one of the biggest issues with the division. The single biggest problem is that not only do you have a shit AA in Phase A, but you also have just this. This is your only fighter in A. Meaning, do you want to have some G6s, or do you want to wait till Phase B to have Focke-Wulfs, which are good fighters, but it means that your only AA are a couple 20mm. It is a real dilemma, and I found, at least in the couple games I played, the 18th SS had some real issues in relation to its Phase A. It wants to be aggressive, but it has an inability to really stop enemy air without going into stuff like the BF-109, which is not great. And on top of that, if you notice, there is not a single thing in this division that can hit AT-wise at 2 kilometers. Meaning that stuff like IS-2s, super heavies like the King Tiger, stuff like an ISU-152, they can kind of just sit there and do whatever they want. You, in fact, cannot even get AT planes in A. So you just are like at the mercy of like those 2-kilometer HE throwers and other heavy-duty tanks. It's an actual weakness, and on many maps, I had a couple maps where I just couldn't do anything. And I kind of just got bullied by a mix of air and those long-range options before Phase B rolled around and I got something to at least fight it. So it's a division that I think, like SNP, kind of has those issues. And it overall, I think, holds 18th SS back. If it had, like, a bit more armor and it had, like, better, like, tank-busting potential and stuff to deal with that 2-kilometer issue alongside maybe, like, some rocket artillery, it would be a lot higher. But the lack of those things, I think, hold it down, and why I think it kind of sits on par with SNP in the 3rd/4th slot probably depending on your preference. Coming in second place in this overall division ranking, the 242nd Gornostrelki is a division that has ended up in a very strong position, in my opinion. It is one of the divisions that I would call actively strong in this DLC. And it is because it is a Gornostrelki division, which has great infantry backed up by a lot of light and heavy armor, making it a well-rounded, aggressive division. In the Recon tab, we get some Toldi 1s alongside some new Gorno infantry and some older Gorno infantry, both of which are just great overall squads that just happen to be in the Recon tab and have radio. The infantry tab is definitely the highlight of the division. You get a lot of new units, cheap, spammable TNT chuckers, double LMG infantry, which is notable because in the 126 Gorno, they struggled with like long-range combat. You get new, like, flamethrower variants of infantry. There is just a good variety of stuff on top of your regular Gorno infantry. It's overall a well-rounded tab, and just kind of has great close-range stuff like the Gornos do, but also has a much better long-range combat potential, which is something that is very welcome. The tank tab is, I think, another tab that is worth highlighting quite a lot because it is very strong. The biggest thing is the turn 1 and turn 2 give you great light armor. You get Zrini 2 as medium armor, and you also get a card of IS-1s and even an IS-2 Komroti. It overall gives you a good mix of light, medium, and heavy armor that, although is not the deepest of tabs in the game, it is enough to allow you to support your infantry in close range and still have enough to fight at longer ranges, which is something that 126 struggled with because it didn't have anything for long range. This division does, even if it's not a bajillion of them. Support tab overall has just kind of your standard support stuff, 50mm mortars, you also got various machine guns, support guns, but you do have a card of ISU 152 in Phase A, which is very nice for that long-range HE barraging. In your AT tab, good medium AT guns with ZIS-3 and ZIS-2. Also get these pretty nice PTRS squads. However, notably no 45mm AT guns, which is thankfully kind of compensated by the Turons existing, but it is a bit strange that there's not a single 45mm AT gun that is usually so nice to, like, deal with light armor. In terms of anti-air, you get some captured Nimrods, which are always nice, captured Flak-Verlings, and then some 85mm guns. It's overall not the biggest of AA tabs, but it's definitely got enough bite on it to be useful. The artillery tab essentially has the really, really good 52P 356. Just so you know, this thing is, like, ridiculous for, like, no reason at all. 12 rounds per minute on its regular barrages. That is very, very high. It's got radio, so you get better accuracy with it. These things are really good, and it's, like, definitely, like... It's honestly, like, one of the best artillery pieces in the game, as long as you're not trying to, like, shoot the back of a map. It's a very, very good support gun. Even has smoke, even has heat for, like, light AT work. It's just overall, like, a really solid piece, even if it's not the heaviest. You do get a card of off-map, and you do get some mortars if you want. There is also this weird BM8. I would honestly suggest not running this. This thing's kind of a meme, and it's not good. Maybe if it had a reload, or there was, like, more per card, I could see it. But as it stands, this thing is just, like, not really worth the slots. I have it in here just to keep trying it, but it was pretty unimpressive in my games. And then in the air tab... just overall a pretty solid tab. You get nice recon planes, a variety of bombers and fighter bombers, some IL-2s for tank busting capability, and then some heavier bombers as well. Overall, Gornostrelki is a division that I think definitely has to play aggressive. It just doesn't have the depth in, like, its armor tab or some of its other tabs to play the long game. So instead... I built this on Maverick, which I think is very fitting for it. It feels very strong. You got a lot of resources. You can definitely carve out a good advantage in those first 10 to 20 minutes of a match before you start running out of your prized and special tools. It's a very strong division in those aggressive playstyles. Albeit not the strongest for team games, but at least for 1v1 it seems to be a very legitimate division as long as you don't run into certain maps. And that leaves us with our last division, the best one to come out of the DLC, and that is the 1st Czech Army. This is essentially a army corps that is taking a bunch of really good stuff from the Soviets and combining it into one very potent package. It is extremely well-rounded and definitely, I think, the best division coming out of the DLC. In the Recon tab, you get very good mixes of paratrooper infantry and stuff like bazooka infantry. You do have some armored vehicles if you wanted them, but just you have some solid options overall, including snipers if you wanted those. In the infantry tab, you get a lot of different options. I'll note some highlights. The Strelki SVT is a really good squad. The SVTs and double DPs is a lot of firepower and makes this a very impressive at range. You get stuff like your standard Strafniki, which are always good long-range units. You get strong CQC with stuff like the Tankos. You get these 15-point grenade chuckers. You're able to get parachute infantry in various varieties. You have standard units. You have paratroopers if you want triple DTs. Your leaders are good and numerous. There's just a lot here that is really good. And I actually had a hard time building a tab, and I'm probably going to change this more. But at least for right now, this is what I have. It's overall a very, very solid infantry tab. Definitely above average compared to your standard Soviet one, due to that little bit of extra firepower some of your squads have. Tanks is a highlight of the 1st Czechs, in my opinion. You get everything from light to heavy tanks, meaning you are capable of dealing with anything that comes your way. You get some T-70s for light armor. T-34s are great options as well. You get some IS-1s, which I will note that at the time of recording, it's been said that they're going to get this availability nerfed because this vet curve is ridiculous. This is like having... IS-1s are like better Panthers, so the fact that you get 3 of them at Vet 2 in Phase B is kind of ridiculous. And as I understand it, this is going to get toned down a little bit. But you also get IS-2s. You get T-34 85s if you want some sort of in-betweens of the IS and T-34s. It's a really strong tab. It can fit pretty much any need. Then you get in the support tab, good amount of machine guns, support guns. You don't have any 2-kilometer HE, which honestly would probably push this division into like S tier if it did get any, so it probably doesn't need it. You get the funny meme thing. This sucks, by the way. Don't actually use it if you want to do well. It's very, very bad. AT-wise, you get some strong stuff. You get Raider 45mm guns, which are really, really good. You get ZIS-2s. You get these weird shieldless ZIS-3s. They're no different, though, so it's whatever. They're just cosmetically different. You get some Su-85s. You get these large paratrooper AT teams. It's overall a good tab. AA is a bit limited, but functional. You get some Bofors or some 85mm guns. Not amazing, but it's functional enough for what you need. The artillery tab is actually a highlight. These M60s are new to the division, and they're really good. They are essentially, in my opinion, better M30s. They have the same tank-busting capability, pretty much. If we look at like the heat shells, it's 160, 40% accuracy. The M60 has that. But also has a better dispersion on its gun, so these are like better M30s, which are really, really good as well. On top of that, you get like radio mortars if you want them. You get ML20s, which are good overall 150mm guns. You do get M30s if you need more 2-kilometer HE outside of the M60s. And then in the air tab, you also get access to a good variety of fighters, some fighter bombers, but also some heavier bombers. No tank-busting planes, but you don't really need it because you have excellent armor. Overall, 1st Czechs is a very, very strong division. I think it's very easily going to end up as an A tier, even whenever those IS-2s probably get a nerf to their ability to be double vetted. But even with that change, this is a really strong division. Very, very well equipped. You have good tools in every tab. There's not really a weakness to say in this division. It's a very solid one, and definitely the best coming out of Dukla. and that is going to be my review and rankings of the various multiplayer divisions in Dukla Pass. Overall, there are some fun options. I do feel like the Axis kind of got the short end of the stick, because several of their divisions have the potential to be interesting, but feel like they've fallen short power level-wise. I'm a fan of weaker divisions, but even then, it feels like they're not even, like, weak, they're just kind of boring, if that makes sense. And overall, it's still nice to see, like, some of the new stuff. Like, it's fun to play with the IS-1s, the 18th SS is kind of neat, SNP is probably pretty interesting, and especially 242nd Gorno is probably, like, my favorite division to play out of the new DLC ones. But otherwise, that's pretty much going to be it for the video. If you enjoyed this, let me know down in the comments what was your favorite division out of the 6 in this video. Make sure to throw the video a like if you enjoyed this, and make sure to also subscribe maybe for any future Steel Division content that I come up with. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and have a good day.